The end of the victim archetype. Many of us chose to transcend one of the archetypes, the most deeply rooted in our collective consciousness, the victim. Whether we are consciously aware of it or not, our soul is constantly manifesting situations which will eventually lead us to a full transmutation of the victim archetype. The work begins even before we start noticing patterns and triggers, and it can continue way beyond the moment we understand that there is a bigger picture. The death of the victim archetype has been immensely humbling for me. I realized how I could lie to myself, live in total denial, and believe that I handled the problem. Far from depreciating the work I had done, I had to admit that it was rather incomplete. Those of us who chose this particular path have most likely lived all sorts of abuse, whether it was at a young age or later on, in this incarnation and others. Trauma changes our tint, our vibration, and flows throughout our bodies, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, like a poison. Very often, we found ourselves in traumatic situations again and again before we can heal previous trauma, which causes fragmentation. When there's fragmentation, there is disconnection from our light body, which causes suffering. As human beings, we are equipped to develop a wide variety of survival mechanisms to avoid great suffering. These mechanisms serve a wonderful purpose. However, when we are not aware of our survival identity, we mistake it for who we truly are. The longer we take to recognize this, the more challenging it is to differentiate our true self from our full self. This is when we get caught in a limited perception of ourselves and our reality. With our nervous system constantly on high alert, we see ourselves, consciously and unconsciously, as victims and/or potential victims. Why was the work that I had done incomplete? Well, it was because I was still a victim. Even though I strongly dislike being associated with the term, I was a victim by default. A simple flashback could take me to a moment in time where I was a victim. Even reflecting on my journey reminded me that at some point, I was a victim. I forgave, I healed, and forgave some more, but I was still a victim. When I came to this realization, I became frustrated. Why do I have to forgive so many things? Why am I still feeling sad and unlovable? How can I feel this way after all the healing I have done? It took time and the gentle guidance from the divine to integrate a very simple notion. There is nothing to forgive. There is absolutely nothing to forgive. I had already understood mentally this notion years ago, but I had to integrate it to then be it. There is nothing to forgive. This sentence holds the perfection of the creation. It holds unconditional love, the sacredness of life, and the awe-inspiring intelligence of our infinite Creator. It also shows how we can perceive ourselves, others, and reality through many different perspectives. When we address the trauma, we can place ourselves in the seat of the one experiencing in the flesh. And when we choose to heal, we can become the observer and position ourselves where there is timelessness and absolute surrender. I had to be it. So I had to see whoever was involved in my traumatic events from the soul perspective, the observer. Then, and only then, could I gradually see them as ally and feel love and gratitude for them. Not their human, them as soul. For some, I'm still not completely able to feel genuine unconditional love, but it is a process which demands patience, compassion, and consistency. With the help of a wonderful method called the Radical Forgiveness by Colin Tipping, I added a new practice to my energetic health routine, which allows me to practice the embodiment of the new paradigm. We can always go beyond, and it is by doing so that we create what hasn't been created. There is liberation in transcending the victim archetype. By freeing ourselves, we free others. There is no benefit in keeping the victim label once we are ready to go beyond and willing to live fully.